Well, hello again from Ski Instructor Academy. My name's Paul and I'm with Andy from Snow Camps Europe, and we're here to follow up on some of the comments we've had on recent videos that we really should do more often, actually, because some of you come up with some really good points. And I want to look at a few things that were highlighted on my channel particularly. There's a guy here, we've all got our glasses on, haven't we, Andy?
I'm trying to find
you're trying to bring up
comments.
yours. I've got Emil Ferrent, who you were mentioning in your comment that from our video, Trainee Instructor Group, Breaking the Habit. Yeah. So just before we went into lockdown, I went up and took the time to actually take one of the group lessons.
I saw this. I skied past and was like, what's he doing? He's teaching a group. I was like, he doesn't do that anymore.
Shock horror. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of you probably think that this is what I do, but I don't. I don't actually coach or teach, very, very rarely. But obviously for the YouTube channel, I thought I'll go up and coach a group and see if the idea behind this, if you haven't seen it, and I'll post it up here somewhere, is the Trainee Instructor Group Breaking the Habit. So it's part of one of the playlist series where instead of analysing, we actually go along with a ski group. And the idea is to start the video, I say, look, I'm going to try to ski with this group just 2 runs. I'm only allowed 2 runs, but within 2 runs, I have to completely change their understanding and concept of skiing at their level, of course. And there's a couple of things I think I should bring up before I speak about Emil's comment as well, Andy, was when we read through the comments, it's quite interesting how many people were, and it's nothing against the comments, but you were quite shocked at the standard of the skiers. Mm-hmm. And we were both surprised because we were thinking, obviously there are people who don't work within the business that we do. Let's say they're used to dealing with very high-end skiers or racers or something like that. But of course, we all started somewhere, didn't we? Yeah. And why do you think we do a preparation course?
To get to the standard needed for the exam.
Yeah. So when people are highlighting that, oh, wow, these skiers look really intermediate level. Well, yes, of course they're intermediate level. That's why they're paying to do a long duration course to bring them up to the standard. And I know some people said, but even in, let's say, another 18 days, how on earth is that going to happen? Well, you'd be surprised how good we are at our job. Mm-hmm. We can get people to the standard of the ski level really easy from the coaching level we have. The big issue we have, and this is like pointing the thumb at myself as a criticism, is getting them to the ski level is actually easy with our coaching staff. But as Andy's pointed out before, getting them to be able to then be good instructors is beyond the ski level, is it not?
Yeah, it's a different skill. And I was talking to my group a couple of weeks ago and telling them basically they are a toolbox, and the more tools they've got in their box, the better teacher they'll be. And yeah, if they can do great short turns, they can do great long carved turns, fantastic. But if they can't communicate with somebody, or they can't describe something, they can't paint a picture, they can't ask probing questions, not going to be as good a teacher, or not as an all-rounded teacher.
Which it's interesting because I watched a recent video, and I was going to talk to you about this off air, and I now can't say too much about it on air, in the sense of it was obviously a well-watched video. It had, I don't know, almost 150,000 views.
It's not one of mine then.
on a short turn lesson.
Okay.
And the lesson was, yes, it was horrendous. And I was a bit surprised by it. And it fell short of connecting with the actual issue that was going on with the student. And it surprised me. It threw me off a bit. But of course, when you're out there, like I threw myself out on the line with this trainee instructor group, for example, I could have failed. And I could have done them 2 runs, and people might look down and go, well, that looks terrible. It's like, okay, this is the thing that you're saying, though. We need experience in coaching and teaching. And I'm always aware that the fact that I don't coach as much anymore within the ski industry, that actually my skill level there would drop because I'm not as involved involved. I might watch these videos, I might do biomechanics and analyze and do other sport videos and other sport consultation. But the less I'm involved in the actual industry of skiing, I have to accept that my knowledge, in effect, is slipping back a bit because of that, because I'm not dealing day to day with people.
It's the old thing, isn't it? Like with fitness, and no one knows fitness better than you know fitness, but if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
Whether it be fitness or
talking about it.
Yeah.
That's the thing with skiing. It's a conversation of constantly talking about the conversation of skiing. So whereas, like, you know, my friend Tom Gelly, who is constantly passionate and constantly on top of it all the time, that's all he wants to do. Whereas for me, I've got this broad spectrum of things that I have to deal with.
You've got a life.
I've got a life, yeah. I have this I have this huge broad spectrum of things that I need to deal with. So it's a bit more difficult. And running a large company like we are, it's quite difficult for me to just get on the piste all the time. And that was my aim this year, was to get back on the piste and actually to integrate, because the only real opportunity where I get 4 weeks of teaching back to back is in Argentina.
Argentina, yeah, of course.
So where I actually
which hasn't
still
happened
teach
for 2 years.
So you can see why Andy thinks, you know, I'm out of touch.
But
I don't know what I'm talking about.
What's interesting, and digressing slightly from, we are going to cover up people's comments, but you said it was 2 runs. 2 runs at probably over 2 hours?
No. That was about literally, I would say, 50 minutes. It was very quick.
Within an hour.
It was very quick.
What I was getting at was, we've talked about what is the value of a ski teacher, and are ski teachers worth the money, and how do you find the best teacher for you? But if you think about that scenario, you had to identify what they needed, deliver it, and get the improvement in that space of time. That's a 2-hour private. And a decent teacher should be able to give you value for money, and you should have an outcome after your 2 hours if you're having a 2-hour private.
I think I will go through, as we go through this series, and when we move back on the piste and we start, you know, Andy and I said we'd go on the piste as well and do a little bit, just so people seem to enjoy that better when we're actually not in our office with a fire behind us. One person commented.
Man, I tell you.
That fire is really hot.
My back is roasting.
Anyway, getting back to Emil, it was an interesting comment, because he said, you know, oh, this video is amazing, one of the best content, etc., which is thanks very much. How would you argument this to a group that skiing is tiring? Why shouldn't it be easier and easier? Which is a great question, because in the video I must have said something about, hey, this is a sport and skiing is tiring. Whereas some people would say, no, actually with great technique, you're not going to be as tired as someone with bad technique, to a degree. But let me put something to you. If you went jogging, you'd probably be less tired over a kilometre than if you sprinted the kilometre. So if you're going to be dynamically skiing and you want to have a super dynamic short turn or long turn, I'm sorry, you're going to get to the bottom of that 300-400 metre run and you're going to be blowing out your backside. Whereas if you get down the 400 metre run and you're not, you've just jogged down the run, which is fine. Yeah, with good technique, I can ski kilometre after kilometre. I go from the top of one piste to the bottom 8-9 kilometres without stopping, because I'm not really giving gas. And that's the issue. So saying it's tiring, Emil, is correct to your group to explain to them, what level are you skiing at? Are you warming up? Are you warming down? Or are you at your threshold peak where you're giving gas and you really want to demonstrate your best skiing? Yes, bad technique will make it more tiring. No doubt about that. And I talk about that, I think, in the second part of the videos that I launched to be the best skier you can. I think I talk about how technique allows for efficiency and efficacy. But the point is, what people have to understand is, if you're going to be carving and putting your hip on the ground, or you're going to be making these super good mogul runs or whatever, then surely it must be tiring.
Yeah, it's got to be. And I don't know where Emil's coming from or what his kind of background. And I suppose when somebody, a beginner, comes on their very first ski week and they learn to ski, they get tired because they are having to work, because the technique isn't there to support or reduce the effort. Then as we take them through that journey and they learn to become better skiers, yes, you are taking away some of the physical effort because you're improving their technique. But it's leisure skiing. It's skiing from A to B. And I, as you just said, I can ski from A to B all day long. But if you want me to do explosive short turns or a run of moguls, we're going to get tired. And I think the difference between what was seen in this video, where you were making them make movements that they hadn't been making, they were literally, well, I wouldn't say standing up, sitting down, but you were making the legs work. And if the legs weren't becoming fatigued by the end of the run, then they probably weren't doing it right. Where we say with a beginner intermediate skier, by staying in the center of the ski and making some movement, you won't fatigue your thighs as much as if you sat back, which is true. But with this, we want you to work. And if they're working, surely it's got to be tiring.
Yeah, especially because the title on the video says exaggeration. Yeah. And one of the big things in sport, not just skiing, I'm talking about other sports that are coaching, is exaggeration. Understanding the benefit to the student of exaggeration is so important. And I can remember one day that way back about 9 years ago, and when I was a ski instructor, my old ski boss saw me skiing with a group of his clients, in effect, and he had me in the office that night and went, Paul, I know you're a very, very good skier, but at the end of the day, you don't need to move like you're moving now. There's no need to go up and down and this, that, the other. And it was, I nodded along because I have a lot of respect for the guy. But of course, he's not coming from my background in coaching and understanding. And I knew that for my clients, my demonstration, he didn't understand what I was doing at the time, of course, because as I've said before, you might see a ski instructor doing an exercise where, I don't know, he's completely on the inside ski going around a turn. But there might be a reason for that. But I don't want to, we can't get in the middle of that. But he didn't understand that I was doing that because I knew my guests behind me would do 20% of what I'm doing. And I needed them to start moving. I needed them to understand this. And that brings me on to another one of my comments, Andy, where I think I'd have to find who it was that was talking about the importance of making sure people understand about moving forward and upward. Because he correctly identifies this as one of his, points where people get into, here it is, Das Alpengluen, is it? In my opinion, the misunderstanding and teaching of moving up and forward is such a big reason for having the center of mass in the back seat. So he's identified this problem, and this is where maybe I need to do a video of this in the physics section of the SIA YouTube site, where I talk about coaching with what I call bad cues. So cueing somebody, whether it be tactile cueing or cueing in coaching, is very important. And you think of a general cue might be in skiing, put your arms forward, for example. So, and then the guys, they've got a group of 8 of them, and everybody, some people move them more forward than others. But as I've said before, just having somebody ram the arms forward like a Dalek out front is going to have the reaction for a lot of people of pushing their backside back and down. So this guy clearly understands in his comment that he finds this comment of moving up and forward can be misinterpreted. An instructor in skiing teaching once explained it to him very logically. And he said, in the movement, we move more upward than forward. The skis move so much further on the ground. And I think if I just clarify what he means by that is, the skis basically shouldn't, if you're going down a hill, making turn to turn, they don't stop moving. It's a moving platform. Now, whatever you do on that moving platform is going to not stop the ski from moving. The ski will keep moving. So in his explanation is, if you go up in the air, the ski doesn't wait for you. It doesn't go, hang on, this guy's going up now, so he'll stop the skis moving forward. The skis keep moving forward. And as you're moving up in the air, you end up moving in effect backwards because the skis have continued to accelerate. And in fact, because you usually do this movement at the initiation of a turn, the skis are about to drop and accelerate into the fall line. So it exacerbates the movement in effect with the skis squirting further forward, and you then lose ankle tension, which I can bring on to another one of the guys who clearly pointed out the importance of saying, hey, ankle tension is one of the most important things. And I think we've said this before, and I'll have to scroll through the comments to find who said it. But again, this is the issue, Andy, that people have.
And I think, again, it goes back to the teachers. And if the teacher is saying we're making an up forward movement, then people are going to potentially come up and then try and move forward. And they're going to struggle to move forward because, as you said, the skis have shot away from them. Where it's a combined movement of up and forward. It happens simultaneously. And then as we get further into the ski progression, let's say, it's an up, forward and inward movement. And by going inward, you're actually putting yourself where the skis are going to get to before the skis get there. And therefore you do say centered, but you can't teach a 2-3 week skier who's just mastering long turns instantly to go up, forward, inward, because they haven't got the confidence to put their body into the turn. So you have to break it down with an up, forward. But I think for sure, if you go up and forward, you're going to end up in the back.
And obviously it was Double Think who said about the tension of the ankles actually. But going on to the up forward thing, the up is the issue that I was explaining to this group, and I think you heard me say in the video again that they don't need to worry about the up part because the slope in a sense is looking after that for them, i.e. if they just move, like you said, across forwards, the slope's going down over by a certain angle, it will appear that you are moving up and extending when you're not. And in fact, one of the biggest things I was saying to two of the lads in my video on YouTube was, you are tall, you've got a long shin and you've also got a long femur, you need to be more compacted than the others because you're so tall in the leg, and it's creating an issue that exacerbates your upward movement. If you move up in your brain a few centimeters, it actually looks like you've just gone up 3 meters in the air, because you're so tall. So being aware of your own anatomy, and if you are long and stringy, you have to be much more stacked than other people do. And I think this is something on the next podcast we're going to do about stacked for the packed. What you had some comments as well about blades and stuff like that. And
yes, there's been a couple of things knocking about. I just put my glasses on.
Yeah, and thanks, guys. I mean, there's some of you, you regularly post, especially Double Think and Alpen Gluva, and there's Landwy, and there's so many of you write huge comments, and it's really educated. Some of the stuff you put across, it's really cool stuff. So I really appreciate it.
So it's the same video on our channel. A couple of people, John Coe commented, a regular commenter, and then Deep Fried Mango. So first thing was they said that side slipping is awesome and definitely underrated when used properly. And as well as a get out of jail free card, as we spoke about side slipping in the video. But then he goes on to say, how exactly important or useful for skiing is pole planting? Then he goes on, I learnt to ski on snowblades years ago. So I learnt to ski on snowblades, years ago. And while I'm now a fairly competent skier, or at least I'd like to think so. I'm sure you are. My poles are just accessories along for the ride. What's the point? So the blade thing, there was also another comment on a page I saw in the week, and it was a chap saying that he was looking to buy skis. And I'm pretty sure he said he tried all mountain skis and he couldn't get on with them. He then went on to say he'd snowbladed for many, many years and wanted to buy a pair of skis, and was now looking at twin tips because he didn't get on with the all mountain skis. Now, if all you've ever done is snowblade, you haven't actually skied. And I don't think that this guy who was looking for a new pair of skis realised that blading and skiing are very different. So a lot of people have gone out and said, oh, try this ski, where the advice he needed really was go and learn how to ski before you go and buy a pair of skis, because you haven't yet learned to ski. And then there was a video of him blading, and blades are very easy. Pretty much anyone can kind of get on with a pair of blades. But then there is, are you blading or are you blading?
And let me help, because some people might be thinking, what the hell are blades and all this, but any type of sort of ski that's really, really short. I mean, blades, I think the blades I remember using years back were like 80 centimeters long or something.
Very short.
Very short, yeah. They have no real binding, actually.
It's like a fixed binding, isn't it? A rigid fixed binding, and then very, very shaped, can turn an extremely tight radius. And they're great fun. Great fun.
They're actually, in fairness, they're great for centering. So we actually do take groups and put them on because they help you get the middle position. Yeah. And they're very unforgiving in the sense if you go too far to the tail, you're screwed. If you go too far forward, you're screwed. But what Andy's pointing out is the same thing that happens to me if I ski, for example, on my slalom skis for a few weeks and then I put back on my giant slalom ski, I have the same issue where all of a sudden I've just added on 25 centimeters to the length of, and that's only 25 centimeters even. And suddenly I need a different style of movement pattern, a patience, because if I move inside too fast, on a giant slalom ski, especially without speed, I'm going to fall over. And with a blade, it's very forgiving with all this sort of stuff. And as Andy says, you can spin it round 360, you can just stand upright and wave and shake your body around and it'll just react under your foot, unless it's on powder. But it's not really skiing. So what this guy's finding is he's going from either a meter ski and all of a sudden he's putting 1.70 meters on his foot or 1.80 meters even if it's an all mountain ski, and that extra 80-90 centimeters is making him think they're terrible. But actually, I'm sorry, you just haven't actually learned to ski yet, and now you're gonna have to go back to being a beginner. Almost.
And the difference, the amount of movement he's probably making, but I actually saw the amount of movement he was making, and he was making very, very little movement.
Wasn't my exaggeration then?
To turn his, no, it wasn't. He was very little movement to turn his blades, because blades are easy to turn. And if he tries to ski like that on a pair of skis, I can understand why he's like, I don't like all mountain skis. But as we said, he needs to learn to ski. But then going on to Deep Fried Mango's comment about poles. Again, if you've learned to blade, therefore you don't have any poles, and then you have learned to ski, but you've then not learned to use the poles or utilize the poles, or however you want to call it, is probably when you were blading, you probably were using your arms. The poles are for a few different things. We use them for rhythm, tempo, timing of the turn, the returning aid. You were probably using your arms as a turning aid on the blades, but you've not yet learned how to use the pole as a turning aid or to keep rhythm and tempo. So again, it's just a learning thing. So your question is, what's the point? Well, there are many points and there are many benefits to the pole plant. And again, go back to the 70s, a pole plant was a pole plant. Now it's a pole tap, a pole touch, an arm movement, depending on whether we're on a steep, whether we're in the bumps. And I think you explained this to me about 8 or 9 years ago, where you asked the group, how many different kind of pole plants are there? Yeah. And I think you even had a number, or you had a...
Yeah, there's all sorts of different, whether it be a blocking pole plant or your standard, like you say, a touch even, and not actually a very fast or hard pole plant. But the most important thing about pole planting is it's like coffee, or maybe it's like smoking. You have to drink it quite a while before you think, oh, I've got to have a coffee. And pole planting's a bit like that. People don't get it, but when you do start pole planting, you cannot live without it. Just like coffee, you can't live without it. And the first thing we do on week 1 with the Ski Instructor Academy training group of maybe up to 200 people doing an ANVID or level 1-2 exam is I tell all the trainers by week 2, they better be pole planting. It better be rightly timed in the parallel turn, because most people have never been taught what a pole plant's for, how to use it, and what the timing is. And if I go through the videos, and I funny enough, it'd be something Andy and I look at, but I downloaded all the videos from the last 2 weeks from the trainers with students. And one of the things that stood out was the pole plants, that they either look like there's some sort of puppet on a string, but the timing is usually horrendous. To such a point, Andy, you had one with your group that was planting uphill, which is very common.
Joe, great guy, love him.
But he planted uphill.
Yeah, planting on the opposite hands and out of time. And I think what you find is with a lot of them is they've self-taught the pole plant. They've seen pole planting and they've tried to do it themselves, and therefore it's a swing, it's an arm movement, it goes into what we said about the mistakes. It then builds in rotation that you don't want.
A correctly placed pole plant is absolutely essential, because why? I say so. There you are. That's as simple as that, isn't it? It's like, no, we need to go. Look, we're into 25 minutes. So what I wanted to say was we are going to have to take this towards part 2, I think.
Yeah.
We're going to have to extend this massively because I want to pick up on Andy's comment about sideslipping again, because you said some really good stuff about sideslipping.
Yeah, well, and sidestepping.
Sidestepping.
Sidestepping,
So we'll
yeah.
pick up on that on part 2 of this. Meanwhile, I'll put the music on. Oh, there's a cricket. Yeah, put the music on. It's Christmas.
See you later. Turn that fire down. It's too hot.